Hey, welcome to Virtual Days.
Hey, how you doing?
Awesome, awesome. So, Yuli, I asked this to all the speakers. Just curious to know what your thoughts are. What's the key takeaway you think people should be taking away from your session on data protection?
Yeah, it's like the data has to be protected in a certain way, so you can always recover because you never know if you have something going on, like kind of a physical disaster. Somebody pressed the wrong button on a Monday morning, and you have laws that actually make you kind of make sure that your data is absolutely protected, and it actually kind of gives you certain approval in kind of security situations. So we have a long-term history, like I mentioned before. We are making sure that data is treated kind of in the most perfect way. And then when you press the restore button, it obviously gets you the data back to any point in time that you want it. And if the original system is not there anymore, people can just redirect other kind of options. So we're making life flexible, and we have many options on board, and it's kind of a life insurance for your IT system. It's like you have a lot of individual systems going on. Things may go wrong, but this is more or less like being a little bit of a lifesaver for many people.
I definitely agree. It's not something people think about until it's usually too late. So, do you
That's
have any
right.
you have any thoughts on any misconceptions you think people have around backups?
Well, sometimes backup is a little bit mixed up with archiving, so that
Hmm.
happens once in a while, where people are just taking backups and they keep it for a longer time frame, and then they call it a kind of an archive, which is actually kind of a different thing. So archiving is about searching things and finding it fast, and then finding content. Backup is about recovery, so you want to get back a certain state in time. So that's something we're seeing a lot. Um, on the other side, we're also seeing like people have a multitude of certain backup integrations because they run whatever physical and virtual cloud hardware and environments, and they may have purchased individual backup products to keep up with that. Data Protector has that hybrid approach that actually kind of combines and consolidates many individual environments, so you can actually run data protection services from one central point, and we actually don't care that much if that's a physical virtual cloud environment. So we're seeing that a lot, and we're prepared for more or less like taking that challenge.
Awesome. I used to work for an insurance company, and they used to have these disaster days where they take everything down and try to restore it. And having backups is critical for lifebloods for companies for that type of situation for sure. All right, Yuli.
And that's true. And
Yeah.
actually, if you run that the first time, it will scare the crap out of you. It's like really heartbreaking moments when you first run that and you haven't done that before.
Yep.
And that's where we want to make sure that things are really working smoothly and that you have a couple of options if whatever your first try doesn't work out because you kind of treated it the wrong way.
Absolutely. All right, Yuli. We have our first question. They want to know security and common criteria were mentioned but not yet supported. Can you provide an update if the CC is now certified or when it is expected?
Well, let's say we're like 80, 90% done with those procedures. We started off by doing those kind of prerequisites tests first. We adapted some areas of Data Protector, updated certain elements. So there's a long history of things we prepared for. We're not completely done with the certification yet because it's like over 80 individual tests being done by an external company. And we're hoping to see more news in the next couple of weeks. So, in terms of preparation, we feel like absolutely prepared for everything coming up in that area. And we will keep everybody informed once we have the certification going on. And like I said, we're shooting for a mid-range certification right now, which is already pretty demanding. We have assigned a lot of engineering resources to make that work, but it will hopefully coming up soon, and we let the world know about
Awesome. All right, Yuli. We have another question. This one's from Ken, and Ken wants to know how customizable is the dashboard? Can any report or monitor output be displayed there?
Yes, you can. So the reporting server that is built into Data Protector lets you assign kind of favorite reports to your dashboard. So whatever you are assigned to as a task, maybe an operator or the administrator, you can just pick and choose your most favorite area, and you make those items a favorite that shows up right in your face when you open up the DPG UI. So this is highly configurable. You can always take things away and rearrange. And if you need more detail, you just click those items and drill down into individual kind of detail level. And then you print out or whatever, archive into whatever format. You may want to do some changes on your backups and improve the situation. Later on, you want to recheck on the same items and make sure how big the improvement was, and if you are good to go from here.
So speaking of dashboarding, you did mention some KPIs or sort of SLAs that people should keep track of. Can you just mention them one more time? Because I think it's important that backup should be part of your whole holistic picture of what's going on with your organization.
Okay, well, there's like two major items that shouldn't be forgotten in any backup or data protection kind of discussion. One is RTO, which is recovery time objective, and the other one is RPO, which is recovery point objective. So RTO is the time you can actually afford to wait for your data to come back. So if you have a backup system going on, the most important thing is like if you have a disaster and you can press a restore button, which is good, you want to have assurance that you can restore in a certain amount of time. If something comes up like, oh, I need a day to restore here, and you expected like 3 hours, 4 hours maybe, then you're a little bit out of luck because on that particular business day, you may have to send all your workers home because you can't be productive anymore. So you want to make sure that from the data we're taking while doing backups and restores, we can actually calculate if the expectation you have set in form of a service level is actually met by the backups you configured. And that has to do with how often you do backups and what kind of type of backups you do. RPO, like the recovery point objective, is the moment to where you can actually restore. And that's as equal as important because people want to make sure that once they've done backup and they press the restore button, more or less, they have 100% assurance that they're getting out to this database or whatever file system at a very specific point in time. Because, like I said in the presentation, some of those systems have to be synced up and they need to be perfectly aligned with other partners in your IT business. So when you tell it to restore to whatever this morning 7:25, then you get this morning 7:25, not 24 or 23 or so. You get 25. So that's the assurance we deliver, and that is configured in those service levels.
Very cool. So Uli, I run a very small site and I do backups, and sometimes I get attacked by malware one time, and so I had to go get my backup. But how do I know? How does security play into backups, I guess, is my main question. Does that avoid situations like that, or is it more from the encryption side?
Yeah, that's kind of how you planned it. So data protection, as in general, is actually not looking into whatever individual emails or attachments and so on. So to secure against those kind of issues, you may need whatever an email scanner that is dedicated for it, or whatever a file system scanner like you have in typical whatever kind of antivirus products and so on. So let's say you have those safety measures already in place, and that should be a standard in all those companies. Still, at the end of the day, things may go wrong because somebody kind of sneaked some data in by USB drive or the DVD, whatever. And if you had a disaster going on, so your data is kind of destroyed or it's inaccessible, then you want to go away and restore your backup. But maybe not to the same system, but to another system to test drive the data first, if it is really okay and whatever, virus-free or ransomware-free. So what you need is a couple of options to make that work. But general data protection is actually not the same thing like a virus scanner or so. On the other side, it needs to be secure. So that's the other point you mentioned. When we talk to systems to back up and restore, we have to prove that we're doing that in the most secure way. And there is vulnerability tests, going on in at various customers, making sure that the way we use the data, either backup, restore, move, replicate, whatever, is done at 100% security level. And we're doing that by encrypting the data and control communication and being 100% in line with all those kind of security guidelines that are out there in the field. And like I said, so the most complicated and complex one is common criteria. If you're listed on that particular list, then suddenly even military customers will be interested in your services, because that's kind of an area where no other of our competitors is located right now.
Awesome. Great stuff. Yuli, we have another question. They want to know, are there practitioner-based classes available to stay current with new releases?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So with every new release we usually come up with a certain set of update sessions, and that may include whatever certain training, like technical training or general trainings. We focus on our own sales force, of course, but also customers, partners. So there is a series of webinars coming up that is basically for generic training, like what is actually launched in the new version. We're also talking about history items and so on and so forth, because sometimes this is kind of needed as background. And of course, there is lots of training classes where people can actually climb into individual levels of education, like the training for whatever, the absolute beginner into Data Protector, but also training classes that support really a little bit more complicated things like backups that use disk array snapshots, replication, certain special treatments of disaster recovery scenarios, and so on. So there's a huge amount of items coming up. And that would actually be listed in our training folder. So if you go to the Micro Focus webpage, and in the Data Protector section, you will find mention of whatever Data Protector training is going on. Usually we provide them virtually as well as physically. So you may want to check on where those physical classes are if you definitely need one, especially when you want to do hands-on kind of situation training. But there's also a lot of virtual trainings being available. Some of them are even visible on YouTube or our own DocOps portal. So there's many ways to get educated. And of course, you can always get in touch with us if you have any kind of special need.
Very good. All right, Yuli, we have another question. This is from Ken, and Ken wants to know, do you have any recommendations on how Data Protector may help with ransomware?
Yeah, that's kind of going along with kind of how we handle backup media. Because first of all, to protect against ransomware, you need to have a backup that stores your data on an independent piece of media that cannot be reached by any of the server systems. Because ransomware will kind of encrypt or scramble data that is reachable all over the place. And if you just kind of mount data like from a snapshot to be restored in kind of an external way, ransomware may actually detect that and kind of infect that incoming data as well. So at the end of the day, you have the same situation as before. So what we do usually is, first of all, having a dedicated external media, and that may be whatever virtual tape, cloud, or even physical tape, kind of completely secures the backup media from what's going on in ransomware. And if we know that a system is infected, what we can do is more or less like restore a copy of whatever, a virtual or a physical machine, test it first, because the data came hopefully from a time frame where ransomware wasn't more or less like attacking on it. So we restore that data and kind of get you back into another point in time where you can actually set up with the services again. Because as soon as you overwrite something that is still live and ransomware is still active on that system, you may end up with another kind of set of scrambled data. That's not good enough. Snapshots can help as well. If you're doing snapshots on a disk array level, meaning like underneath physical or virtual server, then of course we can move data blocks back to the original location without making them visible to that machine that is overlaying it. So we would essentially override the encryption that has been in place or kind of activated by ransomware, and we bring up that virtual machine with the previous data set that is ransomware free. So there's like at least 2-3 different kind of types of restoration that you can actually create. So you could also combine that with whatever ransomware scanning technology or any other virus and other kind of data protection technology. So as soon as they kind of sound an alarm, we can actually automate by using the ITOM-based kind of product family and automate certain activities that are going on from here. And that may include a standard restore, or that may include whatever replaying snapshot. So there's a couple of options available.
Great. So Yuli, you did mention something about Office 360 support. So we do have a question here about that. They want to know, are you able to provide any more specifics on the timing for Office 360 support and any more details on any other applications which may be supported in the future?
Okay, that could be a long answer if I go to all of that. But let's kind of concentrate on Office 365 because that is what many people are asking for. So Office 365 has a certain backup or data protection API that just got renewed like a couple of months ago. So Microsoft actually provides us with an API that can back up individual elements of Office 365. Now, why would you back up Office 365 anyway? Because you may think that everything you put into the cloud, you don't need to back up anymore. Well, it's actually not completely true because Microsoft doesn't actually provide you with a long retention time of the data being held in the cloud. So you have a pretty good guarantee on performance and availability, but retention comes from backup tools like Data Protector. So what we do is we take those approaches from the available backup API, and we can extract, meaning backup, individual data from Office 365. So that may be Exchange, that may be SharePoint, OneDrive, or all the other members. Now, the way we're planning it, and that's actually going out for about like summer next year, we're trying to get a hold of the API first, making sure that we have it perfectly integrated. And this should look and feel the same way as we've done all the other Microsoft products in the past. So an administrator shouldn't see much of a difference if it is a local version of an Exchange server versus an Office 365 version of an Exchange server. So we want to make that look basically absolutely the same. And we're using the kind of the backup API that is shipped with it. Now, the plan is to start with Exchange inside Office 365. And once we've done that, we can open up to SharePoint, OneDrive, and some of the other elements. So right now, we're kind of in the middle of preparing for that. And that will take more or less like the first 1 or 2 quarters into the next year to have that done. And we're planning for somewhere summer, kind of upcoming release to have that integrated. And customers may have a choice to do local backups, like inside the cloud itself, like into Microsoft Azure, or we're thinking about offering also local backups, like where you want to have your own backup data coming out of Office 365, and you want to store it in your local office, so you have kind of a safety net once you have an issue with the cloud, because it could just be a VPN problem somewhere. You cannot reach the cloud in a secure way. Access is denied, and you may want to have some data that you can restore locally to at least go on with your productive life on a temporary basis until kind of configuration and access has been repaired, and you go on with that.
Awesome. And Yuli, probably time for one last question. And the question is,
Mhm.
uh, for, for the reporting, is there a single pane of glass view I can get for all my backups? And is there a maximum number of media servers which are supported?
Yeah, actually, we do kind of a single pane of glass view, even if you have multiple backup servers going on. And of course, there can be a number of backup servers and also media servers at the same time. Um, and we call that concept manager of managers. So if you have many of those kind of backup servers, and every backup server is called a cell manager, by the way. So we have a manager of managers concept. Now, when we import those servers into the reporting server, it will actually see that there is a correlation in between some of those cell managers, and it will automatically kind of create certain databases to make sure that this is properly displayed. So when you open up a report or you want to get an overview, it may just ask you if you want to have a complete overview of everything you have, or just one dedicated system out of your larger environment. So you can actually control for your own how much data you want to see, and how deep you want to go with that data. So that's kind of a configuration item. And like I said, this is one of our major advantages to actually consolidate very much different individual environments into one overview, where also monitoring, reporting, licensing, auditing information is all stored at one central place, and you don't have a zoo of individual configurations to manage. And that has been proven to be very beneficial for most of our customers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yuli, for your time. Before we go, is any
Mhm.
parting words of wisdom you want to leave the Vivid Virtual Days attendees?
Well, stay interested, because you never know how many times IT will change. We're learning that every day. Once we thought that Data Protector is a mature product and we're good to go in all those environments, we just learned there is another environment like clouds or anything comparable around the corner. So always be prepared for changes, and make sure that you have a proper recovery strategy.
Awesome. Once again, thank you, Yuli, so much for your time. Really appreciate all your efforts in contributing to Virtual Days. Thanks so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right,
Bye,
cheers.
Joe.